Hey guys, what's up? I'm Nikhil, your TutePad instructor, and in this After Effects tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to create a really cool looking abstract particle stimulation in After Effects using Trapcode Particular. So without any further ado, let's get straight into After Effects and get started. Alright, so here we are in After Effects. So let's start by creating a new composition and let's rename this to main. 1920 into 1080, 30 frames per second, 10 seconds should be good, and hit OK. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create a new solid. So let's create a new solid by hitting Ctrl Y on the keyboard, and let's rename this to circle. Hit OK, and let's create one more solid by hitting Ctrl Y, and let's rename this to particles. We can change the color, doesn't really matter which color it is. And then I'm going to select the circle layer. We can hide the particles layer for now. Let's select the circle layer. Select the ellipse tool and hold Ctrl and Shift while dragging to create a perfect circle just like so. Then let's go into the mask 1 mask path. Select the mask path. Hit Ctrl C to copy the mask path. Alright. And let's hide this up. Let's turn on the particle layer and add particular effect to this. So now basically we have some particles generated in 3D space. So you can create a new camera. 28mm looks good. And if I switch into my camera, you can see the particles are 3D. So we can create some really cool camera animations as well. So let's hit Ctrl Z. Let's go into particles and go into emitter. Then right over here where it says position, I'm going to hold Alt and click on the position stopwatch. Then I'm going to just click right over here anywhere in the timeline. Let's select the position and make sure the time indicator is at the very beginning. Select the position and hit Ctrl V to paste the path. So now you can see the particles are, emitting in a circular direction. And you can absolutely select any shape that you want and just copy the path on the particles. So now we have something like that. But what I need is to keep the animation looping. So what I'm going to do is right over here in the position, I'm gonna add an expression called loop out, open and close parentheses. So now our animation is gonna keep on looping just like that. So let's close this up. Then what I'm gonna do is set the position subframe to 10x linear, so our animation is really smooth. And in the direction, I'm gonna set this to directional. So now we have something like this. Pretty cool. Let's set the velocity down to maybe somewhere around, let's go with 5. And increase the velocity from motion to around 50. You can see we have something like this. You can always play around with this to create a different look, as you can see. Then let's go into the particle section and let's bring down the size to 0 and also the feather amount to 0. And then I'm going to go into the aux system, and this is where our particles are going to be generated. So I'm going to set this from off to continuous. So now we have this really cool looking particle stimulation, and of course it is 3D, so you can always switch into camera and rotate it to create a really cool look. So let's play around with some settings. First of all, I'm going to increase the particles per second to around 800. So we have some really nice thick lines. And also I'm going to set the feather to 0 and increase or decrease the size to 2. Also I'm going to go into the emitter and increase the particles per second to, let's go with 300. So we have more particles into our scene. Pretty cool. Then what I can do is play around with the inherit main velocity to create some really cool look. So I'm going to go with, maybe let's go with 100. I can see right off the bat, nothing really happened. But if I set the life per second to 2, and then what I can do is I can go into the physics section, go into the air section and into the turbulence field. Let's increase the effect position to, let's go with 80 or something like that. So now we have this really cool looking particle stimulation, as you can see. Now there are a lot of possibilities when it comes to particle stimulation. You can create some really cool looking particle stimulations, and by the way, it is abstract, so you can create a random of different looks. Now let's turn on the air resistance rotation, and I'm going to set this to around, let's go with 2 to keep it under control and make it look really nice. See, it looks more organic. And let's go into the aux system again, and into the size overlife, I'm going to select a preset, maybe something like this one, to create some really nice fade off at the end. And for the opacity overlife, I'm going to select maybe this one. So now we have something like this. As you can see, this is looking very, very interesting. Also, let's go into the set color option and set this to overlife. And then what I can do is go into the color overlife, select a preset, maybe this one, bring this a bit closer, just like so. And let's make this kind of a darker pink. And of course, you can select any of your favorite color that you want. I'm gonna go with something like this one. Let's see, maybe I'll make this a bit blue. That, and of course this is looking pretty nice, as you can see right off the bat. You can also add some glow, so let's add a glow, and we can increase the threshold to maybe around 70 and increase the glow radius to create some really nice fall off for our glow. You can of course play around with the threshold, something like that. Looks pretty nice. Now again, if you want, you can go into the camera and just create some really cool camera angles. Just to give you guys a quick example, I'll just create one, maybe something like that. Okay, and make sure to turn on the depth of field option and increase the aperture to around, maybe let's go to 150, and for the blur level 150 as well. And for the focus distance, I'm going to go to, let's say, maybe 1200. And you can see we get this really interesting look. Looks pretty cool. See? So it's a really cool way to create some really nice camera angles. And make sure to keep your aperture and blur level really high to create some really nice depth into the scene. So I'm just gonna hit Control Z for now, and let's see what more we can do right over here. Maybe I'll increase the threshold a bit more. So our particles are looking pretty nice. Now one more thing that I'm gonna do is add some optical flares to this. So hit Control Y to create a new solid, make it black, and let's rename this to OP for optical flares. And let's add optical flares to this. Let's set this to screen, go to options and clear all, and we just need the glow. Hit OK, and I'm gonna set this to somewhere around, let's say there, and let's give it a really nice orange color, something like that. It's pretty good. Hit Control D to duplicate it, and I'm gonna place this right over here. And for this one, I'm gonna go with something like a blue color, something like that. Looks pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is select this particles layer, that is our particular trapcode particular layer, and hit Control D to duplicate it. So now we have two copies, and I'm going to solo this up so we can see the bottom one. And what I can do is, first of all, hide the glow, and let's go into the particles section and increase the particle size to 2 maybe. And also I'm going to go into the aux system. Let's go into the aux system and set this to off, so we just have the particles. And let's go into particles and increase the velocity. So go into the emitter section, and I'm going to increase the velocity really high, maybe something like that. So play around with this, set this to 50. Just play around with the velocity, like so. Let's unsolo this up. So we have some really nice particles generating along with our shape. Maybe I'll set this a bit low, somewhere around there. Maybe let's increase this to create something like that, and increase this just like that. Okay, looking pretty nice. Let's go into the size over life, and I'm going to select this preset. So we have something like that, or maybe let's go with this one. This looks much better. Let's maybe create something like so. Pretty cool. And also for the opacity over life, I'm going to select this one, or maybe this one. This looks much better. And opacity or size randomness, I'm going to set this to around 20, or maybe let's go with 40. Yep, this looks much better. Let's go into the set color and set this to overlife. Go into the color overlife and let's set this to this one. And I'm going to select the same colors like we did before. Something like a darker pink for this. And for the black, I'm going to go with a really nice bluish purplish color. Something like so, maybe just drag it a bit closer. Pretty nice. Let's go into the emitter. Maybe I'll just bring this down a bit. And play around with the velocity just a little bit. So yep, this is looking really nice, as you can see. Now of course the composition is getting a bit heavy because there are a lot of particles into the scene. One more thing that you can do is, if I go into the aux system and I'm gonna just set this to continuous again, also solo this up, so you can see just that layer. As you can see, it's taking a lot of time to render because of high number of particles into the scene. Let's bring this down to 100 maybe. And as you can see, we have this really cool look which you can use as well. So what I can do is actually, if I set the inherent velocity down, we have a much control over the particles. I can also bring down this particles section. So I'm going to set this to somewhere around 0 maybe. So now we have something like this, just the particles emitting. Then we can increase it a little. Just like that. Really cool looking particles. We can unsolo this up. And there we have it. This is looking really nice. Let's see if I turn on the particles, what we get. If I bring down the size to 0, we have this really cool look. And this is looking very nice and organic right off the bat. You can also, play around with the size in the aux system. So if I increase the size a bit to maybe, let's say 4, then it can get really heavy, or the size of the particles can get really big. So I'm gonna just leave it at 2.2 maybe. This is looking very nice. So let's go ahead and add our text into the scene. So let's select the text tool, and you can of course type in anything that you want. You can also use a logo if you want. I'm just going to type in abstract particles. Let's center this up, and I'm going to use a really nice font, maybe Montserrat, and make it really small and increase the spacing just like that. We have this really nice text animation that you can add. So let's go to maybe 2 seconds and increase the opacity. So hit T to bring down the opacity, create a keyframe, go back in time to around 1 second and set this to 0, and maybe I'll just drag this a bit more, maybe 3 seconds. Select the keyframes, hit F9 to easy ease it. So now we have a really nice and simple animation. And you may get a bit of color bendings because of the optical flare. So what you can do is select the optical flare layer and add some noise to this. So let's add some noise, maybe a little bit, around 2%, and copy this up, hit Ctrl C to copy it and paste it on the second optical flares as well, so we don't get any color bendings. And as you can see, this is looking really nice. And of course, again, just to remind you guys that this is 3D, so you can use some really cool looking camera angles as well. And that is it for today. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in my next video. Till then, take care and thank you so much for watching, guys.